Hello there, YouTube. We are back with another video for you guys, joined by the majority of the crew here. I've got TJ, Rio, and Jarrell. A little bit of a tag team video here in the sense that, you know, we do have a huge announcement coming up. We have a new ban list coming out on August 23rd, I believe. Will be announced in JP time with the list going into effect on August 31st. So definitely exciting times to see what Bandai is choosing to restrict. In all honesty, a lot of our thoughts as we were talking about it is very similar to what we've talked about in our previous sort of restrictions discussion, and we didn't want to rehash same topics again and just give you sort of like a repeat copy paste video. So we'll just link it down in the video description below. Our choices remain the same, mainly because I think the meta has pretty much been relatively the same as well in terms of what decks are quote-unquote meta defining and what pieces we think need to hit. For those of you who don't know, Bandai does a pretty, I think, standard job at kind of looking at the decks that are topping in terms of longevity. They've said it before, they're really kind of basing their decisions off of decks that have topped for a long period of time and have stayed relevant in the meta for maybe too long. So that's really what they're basing it off of. As such, our choices really haven't changed. So check out that video, like I said, in the video description below. Let us know what your thoughts are on the upcoming ban list. But the focus of today's video is really going to be, you know, the last announcement we had talked about cards that came off. So we're going to be talking today about cards that we feel like have the potential to come off without...
I think you meant cards that would go on.
Go on?
No, what? No, come off.
Come off. Like, they are restricted as of now, but they will be coming off the list to be played up as a four.
Never mind. I thought you were setting it up as it to be our initial announcement was about cards that were going on, but now we're gonna be talking about cards coming off. That's what I thought you were trying to say.
Isn't that what
You're
I
fine.
said?
No, it's not. You said the cards coming off and then cards coming off again.
Oh.
Check the recording, baby. I'm listening. I'm here listening. Drell's not listening. He's too busy over there burping.
Dude, it's 12:40. I just came back.
Exactly. Exactly.
8-hour drive home.
But yes, we're going to be talking about cards that are coming off the restriction list.
Yes.
So let us know what you think. I mean, definitely a lot of different choices out there. We tried to kind of hone in on a few select cards that we felt like were a little bit more relevant. So if you feel differently, you have our thoughts, you have different opinions, let us know in the comment section down below. A couple of things before we hop into the meat of the video itself. If you like the content, like what you're seeing, want to support the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it. And last but not least, hit us up in the socials, which are linked down in the video description as well. Has our Twitter, Instagram, Discord, all that good stuff. Discord in particular has been popping off a lot lately with a lot of interesting like deck discussions, deck building stuff. So feel free to hit us up there. And also if you're looking for like the list of what we've been playing in our commentary videos, that's the best place to get those lists. But enough jibber jabber. Let's hop into some cards here. And I think the first set of cards, or the trio of cards that we wanted to touch base on, were the little Brotherhood of Gaboos here. So we got GABOOM X Antibody from EX5, GABOOM from BT2, and GABOOM from the starter deck. Essentially, these boys were the victim of Apocalypse, in my opinion, where you really were just able to set up trash really, really effectively. And with Apocalypse itself being restricted, and a lot of like the, what was it, like the Dark Masters deck it's fun. Yeah. It does some stuff, but it isn't as effective as if Apocalypse were there as a 4 of. I feel like these cards definitely have the viability again to come off and still fit into decks that they were otherwise meant to be a part of too, right? Like Beelstar, for example, Rio was talking about, where it can help kind of make that more viable.
It felt like they were also somewhat worried about purple-based Garuru with all the purple cards that we had coming out just in general. Because the other thing too, like what we were saying at the beginning, Bandai's usual wording is that it limits play. Like that's their sort of go-to thing, is that these cards limit future play or future design, basically. So the idea is that these cards are so generic and strong that like they make you not want to use other cards. But I think that these are GABOOM. They would just give Garuru better consistency back. Garuru's doing nothing right now.
Mhm.
The deck had so much support, like back to back to back, and then they instantly just went, yeah, no, I'm sorry. And then they old yellowed it. They old yellowed it like 2 or 3 times with restrictions. So it was just like, ooh, it was tough to be a Guru player.
Well, also too, like, I mean, these cards are also very good just generically for most purple decks, you know, that are out there.
Yeah.
Granted, like, there were never like super like high tier purple decks, but like still like they helped make them viable, and like I feel like you kind of neutered those decks as well, even if they were just mainly for funsies. But I do feel like they've got room to play in now.
And those purple decks, admittedly, right now, I think the only good good purple decks at the moment are very gimmicky. Like they're very like archetypal and gimmicky. They have their line that they have to stick to, and their cards they have to use.
Well, speaking of gimmicky and archetypal, if we've got nothing else to say about the Gaboos, we do have the EX2 Impmon.
My boy.
So if you want to take it away on this one. Yeah.
That's my son. I mean, if you unrestricted, Beelzemon just has a chance of high rolling again. I still don't think it's faster than some of the decks right now. I think it would just maybe be able to keep up in certain scenarios. But I don't know. There's also a lot of cards that like punish you for having trash. We also have like the new Paladin mode ace, which puts cards away from trash. So like if you play Imperial, you're just never gonna have your trash set up. You can keep milling, I guess. But at a certain point, Imperial's gonna just outpace you.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since you can't unsuspend. I don't know. I feel like it's a card that like it could come off the restricted list. Beals would maybe see a slight increase in play, but I don't think it would actually change much of its placement in the meta, which is very much right now. In regards to our recent tier list video, feels Magna Garurud, man. It just wouldn't do too much.
What do you think, Rio? You have something to say?
Oh no, I agree. Like I feel like that's just too slow compared to the current meta. It's like you're gonna set up your mills and then just die.
Yeah, I mean, it also just like there's no protection. Like there's so many option cards now, ace cards that are running around that just you know, you do your big play blockers. And sometimes you just fizzle out.
That's a nice level 5 Ballmon you got there. It'd be a shame if it just got bounced.
Yeah, exactly. Bounce. There's so much bounce right now that just hurts it too. Like, bounce, and they can like this Impmon lets you DP climb a little bit better, but it's still like not enough to get around a lot of decks that just.
If this Impmon gave like protection against deletion or something, then he probably be pretty cracked. But
maybe a bit crazy. And there might be an argument too where it's like, well, it helps you with your mill decks. Okay, what mill deck is doing crazy right now? What is the Apocalypse dead? They ain't doing nothing.
Yeah.
I guess 7 Great Demon Lords can kind of mill a little bit, but this is just gonna hurt consistency because you can't evil it.
Yeah.
You don't want to mill. Yeah, it's not good. I mean, Creepy's okay. He exists.
Rio, what if you put Apocalypse in 7 Great Demon Lords?
It works like that, man.
New Dark Master cards.
Just start putting level 6s underneath it. You know? They all have one place.
Easy.
Imp is.
What if?
Yeah. So anyway, I think else would just be able to breathe a little bit, but would still be suffocated for the most part.
Which essentially is like the whole point of this list that we've generated, right? Is that these decks can like breathe and function a little bit better, but still not be like super cracked, right?
Exactly. The idea isn't that they don't just shoot to like tier 0 when they come off the list.
Cries and just one.
Yeah. But next card up on the list is Greymon X Antibody from BT11. Mainly restricted during that time because, you know, Black War was best deck in format, or arguably one of the best decks in format. And being able to reduce your evo cost by 2 potentially and turbo up your line and get into Black War like 1 turn faster, which at the time was pretty meta defining, particularly with what Black War was able to do. And also giving yourself another target for like protection is also super nice. I think now this would just make Greymon decks maybe a little bit more viable, a little bit more consistent, but I don't think it necessarily is as broken as it was when it first came out.
Yeah, I'd agree. As someone who played a lot of Black War Grey, I think the protection isn't so insane that it changes the entire game.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's like it's technically in a way can be worse than BT9 protection.
Yeah, I was just about to say I
Or-
almost
yeah.
honestly would prefer to see BT9 protection over this guy. But
Because this card makes it so you have to run X antibodies and a decent number of them to keep your protection.
mhm.
The trade-off obviously is being that you're able to hyper up your line evo much faster. But I don't think it would be game. I think it would just it's like what you were saying, Ben. GREYMOND would be able to play.
Yeah.
Right now they're just too slow and they're too expensive for all their costs. And honestly, if GREYMOND came back into it, the tamer control might be kind of nice to kind of maybe help kind of pull things, maybe slow the game down a little bit again.
Honestly, like Dex Dorgora
What's hard
has
to say?
better tamer control than Black War almost, I feel like. Ish? No?
I don't
Okay.
agree. Hades Force is a strong card.
Oh yeah, sure.
I would say, I guess it's more easily accessible as part of your line, but you do have to have the tamer has to be unsuspended, and you have to have a tamer in your sources,
Sure.
which is
not
usually
always the
not too
case.
hard to do. But there's so many ways that your opponent can play around keeping their tamer suspended, even if it's like to resolve part of the effect, just to keep the tamer safe if they sense a Dorogora turn coming. Otherwise, if you're using Dorudin, you'll pop a tamer if you have a Dorogoromon on board, but that's also tough.
Sure.
It's so it's I don't know. I think they both have their ups and downs to their tamer control, but I think the Hades Force at the end of the day
Sure,
is just
yeah.
an insane card.
You're saying, Jiro?
Hmm?
Oh,
He
I
wasn't
thought
saying
you said
anything.
something. Okay.
No, that's his chair creaking because he's rocking back and forth.
He
Gets crazy with it.
But yeah, okay. I think that wraps it up for Grey X. Next card on the list is my boy X4 from BT10. Again, limited because when Cross came out and X4 was a thing, you were pretty much just recycling X4s and just swinging. And before you knew it, you're just... Did you cross in for one, swing, restand a Taiki, do it all over again, and you're able to OTK in a sense that way. Now with the threat of ace cards, option cards, a lot of just like cards that have just kept up with this and honestly just outpaced it from a strength perspective and a protections perspective, I feel like X4 just again gives Cross, at least for the moment before all the new stuff comes out, like a little bit more viability. I don't think it makes it super broken again as it was back in the day. I think the tempo would be nice. I think it definitely would up the tempo of Cross and maybe make it somewhat more viable in today's meta, but I definitely don't think it shoots up to like tier 1 by any means. Not even tier 1.5.
I really
There's
want to
also-
see someone recycle an X4 like 4 times just so someone can repeatedly ace evolve over the same Digimon. Go all the way from level 5 to level 7.
You know what? Challenge accepted.
Like between aces and then all the blockers and redirects we have right now. Ooh, excuse me. Cross 4 would struggle. I think the only world that Cross 4 is actually dangerous is if we get a Shout, Ballista, Darulu, or Starmon that has jamming.
Jamming or
can't be blocked.
unblockable. Yeah, I was about to say unblockable.
Or can be redirect even more so. He's scary. Like any of those inheritables, a combination of those inheritables.
Give
would be
that to
terrifying.
me in
Please don't.
the next set. I'm still waiting on those releases of the next cards, so I need to.
I mean, the new Shoutmons are pretty good so far.
EX6
The Shout and Omni Shout are
is
both
also
pretty good.
very good.
Yeah, also very good card. But yeah, I agree. I think otherwise he would just make it so that you're a bit faster, but you're probably still slower than most of the better decks in the format.
Any other thoughts, guys? If not, we'll
Crickets.
move on to the next card, which is BT7 Doru Grey. I know TJ and I, we've talked a lot about this card too. I know there is some split opinion on it in the sense mainly that if this card were to come back, Alpha becomes once again like a super just powerful broken deck where you can kind of slot multiple cards of these guys and just do like Unga Bunga, like big time OTK. I see it, but I'm also just like, like.
I think there's a
Alpha's-
couple of things.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a couple of things. I think one, ace cards are a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like yes, you could potentially do your whole turn where you have protection from DP reduction or deletion. However, I think that there's enough different ace effects that can get around that can cause lots of issues. Blockers and redirects are still scary. Or you can with the right inheritables, it usually sits at about 18 to 19k, unless you're using other things to boost him, which there are plenty of cards that can meet that or climb higher than that. The sec +1 is scary, sure, like if you were to put it in like Dex Doragora. However, you lose your consistency of being able to do your all turns redirect stuff with the new Dora Grey from BT-16. Sorry, I'm wandering away from Alpha with that, but the whole thing with going back to Alpha, OTK potential is still there, but there are plenty of decks that have OTK potential that can still do crazy things.
Right.
I think people forget that Alpha does take a little bit of time to set up. You do need to set your tamers. You don't have things that spit out tamers for free. And if you're constantly getting choked to 1, if you're bricking and you're not seeing your pieces, it can put you in a really tight spot to try and climb back up and out.
Right.
Not to mention, like, there's just so many other crazy cards right now that just do like other insane stuff.
Yeah. It just, this card just sort of feels like BT7 Savior for me as well, where it's like, at the time it definitely was broken and a lot of people probably called for its head to just restrict it, but now I think the game has evolved in a way where like I think it's fine. Like, it still can present some scary plays and do some crazy things, but not crazy compared to everything else that's already being done.
Yeah, I agree. And then to kind of finish the Doragora thought again, I just think that like for Doragora, it'd probably be like okay in like purple base with your parried aggression is maybe where it'd be a little bit scary.
Sure.
But purple base doesn't have piercing, so when you swing with collision on Doragora, you're kind of stuck, not really doing much. So it's, I don't know. It's tough. It is a tough thing, but I think that it would be fine. I think that it wouldn't be so insane that the game would warp and people would instantly hate playing again.
Right. But to wrap up the list, the last card that we have to talk about is BT7 Jetsilie. Back in the yellow hybrid days, this card was super annoying because essentially you would just recover 1 and give yellow players another method of recovery. We thought at this point in time, recovery +1 doesn't necessarily do a whole lot. You know, yellow hybrid decks still can do some crazy shenanigans, but I still think they get overshadowed by a lot of today's meta. And there's so many other cards that recover you 1 and do something else as well, where we just felt like Jetsilie, no inheritable, a generic recovery +1. You need the hybrid to reduce evo cost. It's just one of those cards that I think over time has become more fair and finds a place in the game now. Rio, do you have any thoughts as our sort of resident yellow hybrid enjoyer?
No, you kind of basically said everything. The card is just too fair. I feel like it's also kind of very niche. Like, one of the things, like, one of the reasons you'd play it now, I guess, is like you're either using it with the Venus Mon package, right, or you're either using it with Ancient Garuru. And like we were saying, Ben, like Ancient Garuru is like when you're playing, like your mind frame most of the time isn't to recover 1 and last long. It's to end the game fast by bouncing, right?
Right.
So it's like it's not as effective there, minus like the lower climb costs and stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, granted, you know, I'm sure if there's people out there who, if this card were unrestricted, right, and like played out of 4 of, they probably start to cook with like a yellow-based recovery stall sort of package for this that I'm sure somebody out there could come up with. But like you said, I think the standard sort of mindset of most Ancient Garuru decks is just aggro. You don't really care about that recovery +1. And I think I was saying this before we hopped on too. It's just like, if I'm choosing between level 5s, I'd honestly just prefer the Baos, either the BT7 Bao or the new Bao that we got in 17. I feel like as if I'm playing the Ancient deck, like that just feels much better in terms of what I want to do than what Jetsilie would do.
Yeah, like a card that would actually consist with your game plan, other than like just bump it.
But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the list of cards that we thought could come off. Like I said, pretty diverse list. So if there's any other cards that you feel like strongly could come off, let us know in the comment section down below. If you feel like some of these cards should stay on the list, also let us know. We're always down for some nice discussion. As I said earlier on in the video as well, if you're looking for like a recap or rehash of what cards we feel like could be restricted on this coming ban list, which will be out on the 23rd in JP time, check out the video that I linked down in the video description, and I'll also have it pop up towards the end of the video when we kind of do the outro. There'll be a sort of a thumbnail that you can click that'll take you right to that video as well. So do check that out. Let us know what you think. But as always, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate everybody's support. And hopefully we've done enough to see you on that next video. Bye bye.
See ya.